The next video is another good example of the type of misinformation that some people have unfortunately bought into and the arguments that they used against Asa Hutchinson. Let's watch.
So explain to me why there are so many that have the vaccine that are getting the virus. I can name.
I think that we all know what the truth is, and it is times to start accepting what the truth is. We know that this is the emperor who has no clothes, and we need to accept that. We know what the survival rate is of COVID. Do we really want to go back to where we were? Do we really want to go back and lock down?
What came first, COVID or the vaccine? Just curious, because I'm pretty sure that these vaccines, these mRNA vaccines, actually have patents on them.
Sure.
So they were actually patented long before COVID. And I don't think that they were designed to actually get rid of COVID, right?
I'm not sure if the real issue here is that people live in their own ideological bubbles and so they're only exposed to one perspective, or if the CDC and our government officials have just done a poor job in communicating the facts of how the vaccine works, where the vaccine came from. I mean, yes, you can certainly experience a breakthrough infection if you've been vaccinated. The point of the vaccine is to ensure that you're not hospitalized and to ensure that you don't die if you do experience a breakthrough infection, which is why the vast majority of people who are being hospitalized with COVID right now happen to be unvaccinated. And the question about the mRNA vaccine and when it came about, I actually think that was a fantastic question. And there isn't enough, I think, public campaigning education about where the vaccine came from. Because the fact of the matter is, this is a publicly funded vaccine that was the framework of it, the mRNA framework was developed in universities. It was publicly paid for, and it was just languishing in universities because there was no point to develop it for something. There was no reason to develop it fully for a particular virus. And thank God that they had been working on the framework for the vaccine ahead of time, because sure enough, now we're dealing with a pandemic where that vaccine and the framework that it uses has become incredibly useful. It's saving people's lives. But I don't begrudge that woman for not knowing that. I mean, to be honest, I mean, I work in news and you don't really hear many conversations about how the vaccine was developed. Charles, what do you think?
No, I think you're absolutely right. And I think that is what I talk about when I talk about the idea that this needs to have a greater sense of transparency attached to it in terms of the conversation. And we haven't really valued that at the appropriate level. And frankly, we're seeing the consequences of it. For as challenging and inquisitive as that group is, I would really be curious to know how many of them ever passed AP Bio in high school, however. But I do think, even as I make that slight dig, I think that in a broader sense, there is an important conversation here for people who call themselves progressives or see themselves as being on the left. And that is, it is really, really tempting and easy and seductive, even I fall into it from time to time, to dismiss these people in certain states, your Mississippi, your Arkansas, your states that have lower vaccination rates, and say, these people are not well educated as compared to per capita the amount of education or the years of education held by people in other places with higher vaccination rates. The problem is, from a larger political space, what that does is it affirms the notion that progressives and liberals can oftentimes be a bit pious, a bit disconnected from what the average American feels and how the average American thinks. And so we have to be careful not to simply just dismiss folks based off of the idea that we don't think that they're that smart or that intelligent. Because as you've pointed out, the truth of the matter is that we haven't, as a whole, had a ton of information that has been accessible to the public in a way that's been transparent and allowed a lot of us to really know the truth about what's going on. The last thing that I want to say is that even as someone who has a background in liberal arts and soft sciences, as people would call them, I'm a little bit lost on the Emperor's Clothes reference, and I would love it if you could break that one down to me. I mean, I am familiar with the story of the Emperor's Clothes, yes, but I am not quite sure as to the analogy that the woman in the video was making. So I would love if anybody like on Twitter wants to shoot me a note and sort of bridge that gap, please do. Otherwise, what I will say is, no, you are correct, Anna. A lot of it, folks cannot necessarily be blamed for because the information has not been readily available. And then on top of that, a lot of outlets where people have gone to, where they have trusted them, certain outlets on cable news, certain very, very popular outlets on cable news have been rife with misinformation and sort of throwing out fuel for a lot of conspiracy theories, such as the ones that we have been hearing over and over again, even today in the videos. And so shame on them for neglecting and evading their responsibility as members of the media to pass on accurate information, because now we're seeing what the effects of those are, and they are very, very real.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.